Hi, my name is Steve Rahi. I am a cloud solutions architect specializing in management technologies. Today's discussion will be focused on Intune and specifically managing this thing called Lapsed using using Intune. So this is one I've been looking forward to chatting about for a while. It's something we've been working on getting into Azure and Intune, and it's here now. So I'm happy to show it to you. So as we get started, we'll go through the agenda here. What is Laps? Probably you already know uh, if you're listening to this, but we'll explain it. Why Laps? Why do we care? Right. Then we'll get into the requirements for using Laps and walk through how it works, how you configure it, look at it actually having worked. And it's the good news is it's really easy to configure Laps, and the power that you get out of it is is huge. So first of all, what is Laps? Well, Laps is this thing. It's been around for a good amount of time, called the Local Administrator Password Solution, Password Service, right? Depending. And so what this is a means of being able to manage the local administrator account on your Windows devices. So every Windows machine has a built-in local administrator account. You can't delete it. It has full permissions to the device, and so being able to make sure that that account is secure is really, really important. And that's where this Laps solution was initially built. And Laps was initially built and still is available as something you can configure through domain group policy, right, and so on. But in a world where we are increasingly moving away from dependence on local Active Directory, this was seen as one of those things that would be maybe a roadblock, right? Lots of customers have adopted Laps for managing their local administrator account, and uh, keeping not having a way to do that natively in a modern approach was a challenge. I remember talking to one customer that was real excited about going to a full modern approach for Windows, not joining their device to on-prem AD, not even doing hybrid, right? And wanting to go to the full modern approach. And we were talking about things that were roadblocks for them accomplishing this, and there were a couple. Laps was a big one, and so we had to kind of slow down a bit and maintain hybrid longer than this organization wanted to, because we didn't have a solution for managing Laps outside of on-prem AD. Well, now we do, right? And that's why I'm excited to show this to you, right? The other thing is you may be hybrid, and so as long as you are hybrid, you can use Laps in the traditional sense. But so many organizations I see these days, even though they may be hybrid, there could be scenarios where they are going to have some machines that are joined in a modern approach. And so, even in hybrid, now that we have Laps available, it makes sense to start to think about moving that implementation of Laps from local Active Directory based uh, implementations to a modern approach. And so, uh, lots of reasons to start thinking about this, especially if you are already a user of Laps, and a lot of people are, right? Okay, so why do we care? Well, again, we talked about it: security, being able to enforce your password requirements for your local administrator accounts, being able to manage the rotation of your local administrator account passwords, keep them safe, protecting your Windows devices from attacks in case somehow an attacker finds out what the local administrator account is on a workstation. Then that does not mean they have unlocked the local administrator account password on all of your workstations. And contrast that to the world without Laps. So without Laps, so many people, I guess I can't say so many, but it is not uncommon that the local administrator account password may be shared among a bunch of different machines, depending on the build process and so on, right? It might be that you have, 7 or 8 different local administrator account passwords that you try to manage, but uh, if you do have one of your systems compromised, then that actually translates to maybe more of your systems compromised if they share that same password. With LAPS, you don't need to worry about that, right? And so, why LAPS in terms of security? It helps improve security for remote help desk scenarios so that you can recover devices while also maintaining security. So, in a scenario such as that, and you'll see how you do that in a minute, maybe it's a situation where your help desk needs local admin account access or local administrator access for whatever reason. And so you can give them the password for a session. And then as soon as they're done, you can trigger LAPS to actually rotate that password, so that password the help desk has no longer is valid, right? And so the security of that device, once the help desk is done, is maintained. So that's on the security side. On the management side, again, you can manage this today. Many customers do have, right, with local Active Directory, and that's historically fine, right? But now that we do have LAPS implemented in modern approaches, it's pretty important to put this at the top of your priority list to start to move this to modern. Uh, because as organizations approach going to modern management, not relying on hybrid AD, you want to remove all of those roadblocks that could get in the way as quick as you can. Maybe you're not going to move away from hybrid AD yet, but making sure you have this on the plan to transition this before anyone knocks on the door saying, "Hey, let's move away from hybrid AD for X scenario, Y scenario, whatever." At least you'll have a solution ready to handle that, right? Okay, so now why LAPS? Fine, we explain. Why do we care about LAPS in Intune, right? Well, because LAPS with Intune is a modern approach to being able to manage this. Being able to do all of the things that you know and love, but only with modern approach. And I say with Intune, there's also the component you have to also uh, do a little bit in Azure AD, or on Intra ID AD, or whatever they call it these days. Always will be Azure AD to me. So we'll talk about that. And then there are certain management capabilities, things that you're familiar with if you've used LAPS at all. They're on the screen, right? And I'll show you where you configure all of these and use them, right? And then the other thing, just to mention at the bottom of the list, is this this capability also can be managed by the role-based access controls. So if you want certain people to have the access to do this and other people not, or whatever, then just like other things, you can configure this to align with role-based controls. Okay. Now, what are the prerequisites? Well, the prerequisites are here. Likely you have these in place already. Licensing, if you have Intune and Azure AD, then you've got this, right? You need your Intune subscription. You need your Azure AD, your Intra ID subscription. Um, really, anything will satisfy that. Even Azure AD Free Edition will work, and it includes all of the features of LAPS, even in the free edition. So you have what you need. And then I put workplace joined with a question mark. So there, vast majority of systems that would be managed in production are going to be either hybrid or pure Azure AD joined. There is the ability to simply have a machine that is workplace joined, and that type of join is not supported, right? Just so you know, right? It has to be either uh, fully Azure AD joined or hybrid Azure AD joined to do this. And then you need a supported operating system, which, if you're keeping up with the operating systems versions out there. You should be on one of the supported platforms by now, for sure. But just make sure that you have the appropriate KBs applied and the minimum versions to be able to do this, right? Okay. Now, here's the flow. The point of this is not to actually walk through the flow. I have it here so that you can kind of see it. This comes out of our documentation, and this is really painting the picture of the two different ways that you can do management of a machine with Lab. And there's details here about the way that this is managed, the role of the IT admin. It points out that you can manage this with group policy. You can manage it with nothing but um, Azure AD and Intune and blah blah blah. So I'm not going to go through that, but if you want to know the flow and how things plug together and what your options are, especially in a world where you will maybe have some systems managed by on-prem AD and some systems managed by Intune, and Azure AD for a time until you get it all converted. At least this flow, the point of including it is to help you see, kind of where things happen and so forth, right? Okay. So that said, let's get to the fun part of this and talk about how do we go about configuring this to make it work, right? Well, there's the first place you have to start. All of the policy and such will be done through Intune, but the first place that you have to start to actually turn this on is in Azure. So let me get into the Azure portal. If you don't do this part, you can configure everything in Intune just fine all day long. And if you don't do this part, nothing works. So let me let it load here for a second. Azure must be tired this morning. Okay, here it comes. So let me go over to Intra ID. Okay. And then once I'm over in Intra ID, I will go down to Devices. Come on, update. Let's go. There we go. Devices. All right. And then device settings right here. Right. So you already see that. So the first thing you need to do is you need to go into device settings and you need to enable local lap solution say yes. That's all you need to do just yet. That does not mean every single device that is in your organization will be managed by laps by doing this. No, it just allows that management to take place. The actual management settings will be done through Intune and deployed out to groups like normal. I'll show you that, right? Okay, so that's where you must enable it first, right? Okay. Now that we've done that, we're going to come back here in a second. But now that we've done that, we can go create our lapse policy in Intune. Now, before I get into the configuration, just a couple of comments here as we think about how this would be configured, right? So, Lapse allows you to manage a single, local administrator account per device, right? You can't use one policy to manage multiple admin accounts. Or to say it a different way, you can't manage multiple admin accounts on a device. So one policy for a local administrator account on the device. And so if your account is named administrator, cool. You probably don't need more than one policy. But you may have some situations where on some devices, the administrator account, local administrator account is called admin, administrator. Or others, maybe as a part of the build process, you've renamed that account to something else. And so the idea is one lapse policy for every iteration of your local administrator account that you need to manage. There's also a real desire to make sure you avoid conflicts. So when you assign the lapse policy, as you'll see the option to here in a minute, you could assign it to device groups or user groups. But the recommendation is use device groups that have devices in them that fit whatever criteria you're trying to address by the policy, and avoid using user groups where the user may rotate in and out and the policy is going to change and you could run into conflicts a lot easier. Right? And then another thing you'll do is decide where you're going to actually store the local admin password, either on-prem Active Directory or Azure Active Directory Intra ID, whatever. Right? You can choose one or the other, but you can't choose both. So you may make a choice. Maybe, I can't think of a reason why you would, but you may choose to do, some with Azure AD, some with on-prem AD, whatever. But that said, let's get into this and show how we configure it. So where you might think that you would go is under configuration profiles for the device, right? That's kind of where I initially thought before I went through and read the documentation. I initially thought, come on, Intune, go faster. I initially thought maybe it would be a configuration profile option. It's not, right? It is not. So I'm going to just not even let this load. It's under endpoint security. So let's go to endpoint security, and then as this opens up, it's starting to, it looks like, here we go. We're going to scroll down and see account protection, right? So let me choose that. And then we can just walk through. I've got this already created, but let's create the policy here. Choose Windows 10 and later. And then there's 3 options here, right? Here's the one you want with Windows Lapse, okay? So we'll choose that and create. And I'll just give it I'm not going to keep this. I've already got one. Just give it a name so we can go forward. Now, these are the settings you get to choose from. Again, this is not complicated, but it is important to choose these correctly. And so I've got one policy because I just have a handful of machines in my lab. But envision that you may have machines that are in different categories, have different needs. So you can have multiple of these lapse policies to address those needs. But again, what you want to do is make sure that you are not applying multiple lapse policies to a single machine. That's going to result in problems for you. So choose your backup directory. Are you going to back up your local admin password to Azure AD or local Active Directory? One or the other, not both, right? So I think I configured mine to Azure AD, whatever. What is the acceptable password age in days? Now, if you don't configure this, it's going to default to 30 days. But if you don't like that, you can configure it to something else, right? No problem. And again, you might have machines where you're more sensitive than others, and so maybe the standard policy is 30 days, but on a certain class of machines, you want it more frequently, or less frequently, or whatever you choose. That's up to you here. What is the administrator account name? Now, if your administrator account name is administrator, then don't do anything here. But if you have an admin account that is something different, maybe you named your administrator account Bob, just to be silly, then put in that administrator account here, and we will go try to manage that account. Right there, right? What kind of password complexity do you want to require, right? We give you the options here. And again, Lapse will manage that for you. What length do you want? So by default, 14 characters, but you can change that if you want to. So after you've authenticated with that account, right? What action do you want to take against that? And there's just a couple of options here. And then what is the reset delay, if any, that you want to allow for that? You can change it, 24 hours will be default, but you can change, whatever you want. And that's really the entirety of the policy. So it should fit in really well with the kind of things you have configured with Laps already with local AD. So hopefully that will translate for you very easily. But that's the options we have. Okay, so let's go actually watch. Let's go to the next section, which is actually seeing this happen in action. And in that sense, this is really going to be where I will. Well, actually, before I do that, I'll just show you. This is what I've got configured. This is the one that's actually deployed. So let's go down and edit my config settings. So I'm doing it to Azure AD only. I'm leaving it to 30 days. I've got just the administrator account, so I don't have to change the account name. I'm not really configuring the password complexity. I'm letting it do its thing, and all of this is the rest, right? So again, that's mine, and I've got it deployed to just a group that is all of my Windows devices for my lab, and you see that it is actually deployed successfully. While I'm here, I'll just go ahead and show you. We can go look at the report and see that we're all successes, all up, right? And scroll down and see all the devices that I have. So yeah, it's all good here. You can go actually look at the deployment stat. There's a couple of additional reports here that I can look at. Let me just show those to you while I'm here. I can go generate that report. Take me a second to do that. And then we'll see what it shows for us. Okay, here it is. So here's just saying the different machine types. I've got 4, that they are all good and such. So let's close out of that. And then let's go to the per settings status, and we can look at that. So I've got just a couple of that are successes across my setup zones. So, right, so the reporting's there pretty straightforward. So now that I've actually done this and it's deployed successfully to my devices, now there's really not a lot to see, on the device, right? But now that we've actually got this done, let's go actually see how we can work with it. So if I go back to the devices, let's go back. If I go back to my devices and then go to Windows devices, since this is a Windows thing, and look at my Windows devices, then I'll just pick one. And so let's just say that I want to view, view the local admin password on a device. Let me just pick the first one here. And as it opens up on the left-hand side, we're going to have the local admin password. And if Laps has been enabled, you're going to see something like this, right? And let me pause here for a minute, right? So one of the configurations that I did was to store the local admin account in Azure AD. So that local admin account password is stored in Azure AD. But to have to go back and forth to the Azure AD portal and all of that to be able to see it, it's not really convenient. So we have this available in the Intune portal, but it's really just a shortcut over to the Azure portal. Let me show you what I mean. So here's the Azure portal, right? And on the left-hand side, here's the local admin password recovery. In fact, you can go in here and you can see it for all of the devices. Now, I can also go per device. I'll show you that in a minute. But this is exactly the same kind. In fact, this is a little bit more of a holistic view of all of the devices that are managed by Laps. And I can show the local admin password here, just like you're going to see this exact screen in a minute over on Intune. Right, I can go back to my device list in the Azure portal and just choose a single device from here. and do the same kind of thing. So let's go to devices, view all of my devices here. And if I then select, I don't know, this probably isn't the same, I don't think it's the same one, but still the same point applies. And then I want to look at the local admin password recovery. This is the exact screen that you see over on the Intune side. Exactly, right? Just one is in dark mode and the other is here, right? So this screen is just a shortcut over to Azure AD. I can show the password. Here it is, right? I can show. So my point in showing you that is just to again make the point, we put things over on the Intune portal side sometimes as a convenience, but the data is actually coming from outside of Intune. That's the case here. And then also to say that you don't have to have access to the Intune console in order to do things with laps. You can do those things just over in the Azure, portal. But anyway, you can get the password here. This is the detail about it, right? And maybe you want, that password, and then so kind of make a mental note of this password, and then as we go to another device, let's just go to the next one in the list, right? And then look at the local admin password, and then show the password. So different, right? So again, it just kind of illustrates the point that using laps, you don't have the same password on all of your devices. Each device has its own password that is managed automatically, and it's just a nice solution, right? Now, uh, maybe I give that password out to a help desk operator for whatever reason, and now we need to go rotate that password, right? Easy enough. So you can just say, okay, you're done. Great. Here, I just rotated the local admin password, and so it's got a pending action to rotate, and so that'll go down and do it here in a minute, and shouldn't take maybe just a couple of minutes, and we're good. Well, again, this is something that you might also want to do if you're in this portal. So let's go into this device and let's see. Manage, I forget. I can't remember if you actually, let's see. Yeah, rotate password. So again, just to show you can absolutely, and it makes sense to do this from the Intune portal, but it is not something that you have to do from the Intune portal. It's something you can do from either one, depending on what makes sense. Okay, so now we're back here. Let's actually refresh and see if that's gone down yet. Let me go back. That's 11 or 1. Okay, let's go back here and just see if that password rotation has gone through yet. It's still pending. So whatever, right? One of the other things that you're going to want to do, and this is in the Azure AD portal, is sometimes be able to see the impact, right? What has been going on with labs. So we can do that. So what we need to do is come over to Azure AD and look at our auditing reports. So let's oh, sorry. So yeah, here and then where's audit logs. There we go. Right, and then look for the device category entries, and you may see. Let's see. We'll see it in a minute whenever that goes through. But basically, you would uh, want to go by device category. Let's see if I can find anything. Device category. There. Here's one from Labs, right? Update device local admin service. So you can see, here's a recover, right? So you can see the activities related here and what time they happened and uh, uh, whether it was successful, whether it wasn't. Let's actually go look at the one of these. So let's go look at the details. and you can see the activity type, whether it was successful, the device ID that it happened on, etc. Right? Okay, so good enough, right? So that is Laps and how you could use it in a modern world. Now, this is something that I wanted to just chat about in terms of starting to wrap up, just some tips and tricks and so on, right? So, what you saw me do was through the Intune portal. Managing Laps, working with Laps, is also fully implemented through the Graph API. So, if there's a scenario where you want to programmatically be able to go in and maybe rotate the password, maybe you want to put a web page up somehow that allows the help desk to get access to the password for a time and then automatically goes, rotates, whatever, right? Then you can use Graph API. The other thing is, Laps is actually using a background task that is put onto the PCs to make sure that Laps policy is in place and working and so on. There's details about how the background task works that you can look at. I'm not going to go into them here, but um, just know that there's actually work that goes on the device as well whenever it works to implement Laps. And then in terms of policy, here's how things kind of go through the process, right, to get things implemented. So I just put this flow chart up here to help illustrate. And you kind of see the flow, right? Where's the uh, directory for backing up the settings? Is it Azure AD? Is it on-prem AD? Blah, 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 right? So I just put that up there for reference. Now, one thing that I haven't done yet that I want to show you is on the device itself. So just as a quick reference, let me pull in one of these managed devices that I've shown you in the portal. So this is one of them. And just real quick, the Laps policy, if you want to see it actually sitting on a device, it's right here in the registry. So a lot of times the registry settings will be under here, right? You'll be able to see for the device settings, everything under here. But the Laps entry is actually under policies and then Laps. And so you saw in my policy that I've specified the backup directory as Azure AD, and I also set the password age of 30 days. So those are the only two settings here. The rest are kept at default, but at least this is a marker to show you that the Laps policy has been communicated down to the device, right? Okay, so moving on, there are some questions that we document, some FAQs, so I'm not going to read them in detail here, but I did want to at least list some of them out, talk about them, right? So, one, can I use Intune Laps policy to manage any local admin account on the device? The answer is yes. Intune Laps policy can be used absolutely to manage any local admin account on a device, but again, only one account per device, right? Only one account per device. There's some additional comment in this if you want to look it up, but that's that. What if I deploy Laps policy with Intune to a device that already has Laps configuration from a different source, GPO? Well, the answer is that Intune is going to override all other sources of Laps policy, right? So that's good to know. Once you implement Intune's Laps policy to devices, that's what it's going to get, right? Can Windows Laps create local admin accounts based on the account? The answer is no. The admin account has to be there. Does Laps rotate and back up the password for a device that is disabled in Azure AD? And the answer to that is no. When a device is deleted, when a device is in Azure AD, it has to be in the enabled state, right, for it to be actually able to rotate and back up the password. What happens when a device is deleted? Well, once it's deleted from Azure AD, then the Laps credentials that were tied to that device are lost, and also the passwords that are stored in Azure AD are also lost. what happens or what roles are needed to read the lapse metadata. So there are a few. This is where the role-based access controls kind of get into place. You have roles such as global admin, cloud device admin, and Intune service admin that can actually read the lapse metadata. If you see that the local admin password is grayed out, then basically you're going to need to have the proper rights to be able to get in and see that. And then what happens when the account specified by the policy is changed? And so, because Labs can only manage one local admin account on a device at a time, the original account is no longer going to be managed by Labs once you change the account, right? And again, more stuff that you can read about each one of these if you desire. But folks, that is Lapse and how we can do things in a modern way. Wanted to share it with you. If this fits you, if you don't have a local admin password management solution, wow, you need to have one. So definitely take a look at this. If you are using the legacy on-prem AD approach, take a look at this with some urgency to try to get this part updated to, again, avoid roadblocks in helping you move to modern management. So that said, we will wrap this session here. Thanks for hanging out, and we will see you next time.